Mom said it mid-bite of cake. I wish you were never born. The air's sweetness instantly turned bitter for me. Laughter roared around the dinner table, loud like thunder. Everyone felt amused except me. I kept staring at her, my own mother. She taught me to give thanks before all meals, but now she wished my existence never happened. I set my fork down slowly so she would notice. My pulse hammered hard, but my face showed no emotion. The smile I gave her was not forgiveness. It was a clear warning. When I finally spoke just one line, even the clock's ticking stopped moving. My name is Eleanor. Ellie, I am 32. I teach high school English in Denver. On paper, my life seems calm. Grading student essays, packing lunch leftovers, feeding my neighbor's cat when they are away. But in my family, quiet never meant peace. Quiet meant invisibility. I grew up in a house where love was a single spotlight. It never pointed my direction. My mother's world circled my sisters. Madeline, the oldest, a natural star who did nothing wrong. Naomi, the youngest, a creative soul who required extra attention. I was the middle one. Stable, reliable, too simple to notice. When I was 10, I won a citywide essay contest. Mom looked up from polishing Madeline's debate trophy just long enough to say, "That's nice, honey." Then she asked Naomi if she wanted ice cream. At 12, I taught myself piano. Dad called it a sweet hobby before going back to watching Madeline practice her graduation speech. My small achievements were footnotes in their major story. Every family picture proved that. Madeline was always front and center. Naomi leaned on Mom. I smiled enough to fill the space next to Dad. If you looked closely, you could almost see the fatting outline of someone there. I told myself it did not matter. I told myself being reliable was enough purpose. Birthdays, holidays, graduations, I showed up early. I cleaned the dishes before the party ended. I refilled drinks before anyone asked. I believed effort could earn affection. I was mistaken. Our dinners were always loud. Mom's lasagna bubbled in the oven. Dad discussed the neighbors. Madeline talked about her clients. Naomi explained her newest project. I would sit quietly nodding. I offered an occasional, "That's wonderful," like punctuation for their stories of success. When they laughed, I laughed too. That is what you do when you are the family glue. You hold everything together even when it hurts you. The last few months went the same way. Madeline had just become senior partner at her law firm. Naomi still painted in Mom's basement, but in our house, that counted as pursuing her passion. So when Mom called about hosting a celebratory dinner, I did not hesitate. I baked a cake. My small contribution to the family's perfect image. I told myself this time would be different. Maybe Mom would ask about my students or my new classwork. Maybe she would remember my favorite dessert was lemon, not chocolate. Hope survives in a cruel way, even when it shouldn't. That night, everything appeared picture perfect. The table was set with polished silverware. Candles flickered against cream-colored china. The scent of garlic and wine filled the room. I arrived early, of course. I carried the bakery box. I wore the same cardigan I wore to every family meal. Mom smiled seeing me, but it was the polite smile she gave a neighbor, not her daughter. "You made it. Good. We were just waiting for dessert." The evening happened like a movie I had seen too many times. Dad toasted Madeline's big promotion. Naomi pulled up art photos on her phone. Mom requested stories about courtrooms and clients. My moment never came. Every attempt I made to speak was covered up by another laugh, another story that left me out. Still, I stayed quiet. I kept smiling. I thought maybe silence provided safety. The sound of their laughter filled the house. It was an echo of every year I had tried to belong here. Then the plates were cleared. Dessert was served. Chocolate cake, glossy under the candlelight, just like always. As Mom put the first slice on my plate, she looked straight at me. Her voice was soft and sharp all at once. The same voice she used to sing lullabies to me. That's when she said it. You would think after all these years, nothing they said could shock me. But somehow it still did. Maybe deep down I still hoped they would see me differently, just one time. After Mom's words, the laughter kept going. Madeline snorted into her wine glass. Naomi shrieked at the table, wheezing like it was the best joke she ever heard. Dad just offered that weak, familiar smile, the one that always meant, "Do not cause a scene." I looked around that table and saw every version of the life I would never have. Madeline shone with achievement. Naomi felt carefree and totally adored. Mom looked proud, centered in the warmth she created for everyone but me. I was the extra chair, the forgotten utensil, the one who never matched the picture frame. They claimed it was humor. They said we were just teasing, like families do. But in this family, jokes were weapons hidden as memories. "Remember when we told you were adopted?" Naomi giggled, taking another sip. "Oh, she cried for days," Mom added, laughing like it was still funny now. "You were such a sensitive kid," Madeline said, shaking her head. "You took everything so seriously." They were right. I did take everything seriously because it always felt painful. I attempted to join in, trying not to ruin the moment. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I remember." But my voice did not sound like mine. It sounded like a ghost at her own funeral. Somewhere between refilled glasses and another round of applause for Madeline's latest victory, I realized the pattern was fixed. Every conversation returned to them. Any success of mine vanished before it landed. I mentioned one of my students had just won a national writing prize, a child I mentored for months. Mom nodded vaguely. "That is nice, honey." Then she turned to Madeline. "Did not one of your clients get featured in Bloomberg?" The air left my lungs completely. It was not rage yet, just that familiar, heavy sensation of invisibility pressing down. I forced a smile. I reached for my water. I pretended I did not notice how my story disappeared into theirs. When Naomi brought up her art again, Mom's eyes lit up. "You have always been so gifted, sweetheart. Your father and I are so proud." Dad raised his glass. "To our girls." Plural, but never equals. I sat there, the third name in a toast that did not include me. I was finished pretending it did not hurt. As the night continued, the walls seemed to physically close in. The flickering candles, the scrape of silverware, everything felt louder, heavier. Their laughter became blurred static noise. I thought about all the times I swallowed my words to keep the peace, how I mistook silence for actual strength. Then, for the first time, I asked myself a question I had never dared ask before. If I stopped showing up, would they even notice? The thought came not with bitterness. It came with total clarity, like a window cracking open in a room locked for too long. Mom reached for my hand. She was still laughing at some joke Naomi made. "You know we love you, right, sweetheart?" Her fingers felt warm. Mine were cold. I did not reply. Love should not require reminders. Belonging should not feel like a requirement. The chocolate cake sat waiting in the center of the table. I had not touched it, and for the first time in my life, I realized I was not hungry anymore. The room was still radiating warmth when the event happened. Lasagna gone, wine half empty. The scent of sugar and burnt wax floated around. Mom leaned forward, knife in her hand. She sliced through the cake with the serious precision she saved for moments that mattered to her. She was humming an old radio song when she repeated the line. Lighter this time, like a punchline everyone should remember. "I wish you were never born." Laughter followed instantly, like a reflex. Forks clinked. Madeline covered her mouth. Naomi's shoulders shook. It was not shock, it was pure amusement. I stared at the cake slice in front of me. Perfect layers, clean edges, glossy icing. The type of dessert you are supposed to enjoy. But the sweetness tasted metallic on my tongue. My hand tightened around my fork. My chest felt too small for the air I was breathing. I heard my father's voice faintly over the ringing in my ears. "Come on, it is just a joke." A joke. That single word had followed me throughout my whole life. Every dismissal, every laugh directed at my expense carried the same label, just a joke. I looked at Mom. Her lips were pressed together with satisfaction. The room soaked in her approval. I wondered if she even understood what she had said, or if she knew and simply did not care. My vision narrowed. The room's edges blurred. The center point was her face, her smile, the cake. I felt my pulse throbbing in my fingers. The air around me buzzed, like an electrical hum. Then something inside me stopped fighting back. I put my fork down slowly with intention. The small metallic tap sounded louder than any laughter. It was the sound that completely ends conversations. For a moment, nobody noticed. Then Naomi looked up, still smirking. "Oh, come on, Ellie, do not tell me you are offended. You know Mom does not mean it." Madeline chimed. "Yeah, you are so sensitive sometimes." Dad chuckled weakly. My heart raced, but my voice did not waver. "You are right," I said quietly. "She does not mean it." I smiled. It was calm, controlled. That smile scared them more than shouting ever could. Mom blinked. The laughter died on the edge of her lips. Well, that is good. I would not want you to take it the wrong way. I did not, I replied. My tone was steady, almost gentle. I just finally heard it the way it was always intended. The silence spread quickly, like a fuse lit under glass. I leaned back. I watched her expression change. For years, I had hoped she would truly see me. And now, for the first time, she actually did. But she saw a version she never expected. My pulse slowed down. Everything inside me became quiet. I stood up. I picked up my bag from the chair. The leather strap felt firm in my hand, grounding me. I looked at them, my mother, my sisters, my father. I realized I did not hate them. I just no longer belonged here. I think I am done for tonight, I said softly. No one spoke a word. No one tried to stop me. My chair scraped the floor. The candles flickered. I walked out of that dining room, away from their laughter, out of the life where I had been invisible for 3 decades. The door clicked shut behind me. The room finally sounded the way it should have all along, dead, silent. I did not cry that night, not a single tear. I went home. I kicked off my shoes. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the stillness of my apartment. The same walls that once felt confining suddenly felt like total freedom. No voices, no laughter that cut like glass. No need to shrink myself to fit their comfort. I remember the clock ticking. 10:43 p.m., that is when I made a commitment. I would not fight for a seat at their table ever again. I would build my own. I opened my laptop. My hands still trembled slightly. New tab, teaching job Portland. The idea felt like oxygen, far enough away that Mom could not just drop by, but close enough that it still felt like the same sky. I filled out 3 applications that night. By morning, I had sent 10. Every single click was a door closing behind me permanently. Days turned into weeks. Calls started arriving, first from recruiters, then from my family. Mom's voice on voicemail. "Sweetheart, do not be dramatic. Call us back." Delete. Madeline's message. "You overreacted. We were only joking." Delete. Naomi's text. "Mom is worried about you." Delete. For years, I had been the one to smooth things over, call back, and make peace. This time, silence was my only answer. My absence was the conversation they never allowed me to have. A month later, I accepted a position in Portland. New school, new city, new start. The movers came on a Friday morning. As they packed the very last box, I stood by the window. I watched the autumn light stream in. For the first time in a very long time, I did not feel like background noise. I felt seen by myself. Portland greeted me with rain, the kind of rain that smells like genuine renewal. I found an apartment near the water, small but full of light. I bought a new desk, a cheap rug, and a plant I constantly forgot to water. Each item was entirely mine, chosen, not inherited. At school, the first week was chaos, but in the best possible way. Kids had questions. Laughter echoed down the hallways. Colleagues introduced themselves with warm smiles that felt completely natural, not forced. My new principal, Mr. Thompson, called me a steady light. I had not realized how badly I needed to hear that exact thing. For the first time, I came home tired, but not empty. My students began to trust me. One of them even left a small note on my desk. "You make words feel safe." I folded it and kept it in my wallet. Back in Denver, my absence grew louder. An old neighbor mentioned that Madeline and Naomi had stopped speaking to each other. Thanksgiving plans became complicated. Without me mediating everything, they finally had to deal with each other. Without the glue, everything cracked apart. I did not need to celebrate this. My revenge was not rage. It was peace. The kind of peace they would never find sitting around that table. Every time my phone signaled an unknown number, I knew it was them. Sometimes I just let it ring. I did this only to feel the power of my choice. Silence had become my new language. One evening, rain tapped against the windows. I made tea, the same type Mom used to brew during holidays. I took a sip, half expecting the bitterness of old memory. Instead, it tasted warm, alive. My chest did not tighten this time. I realized then that I had not disappeared. I had finally appeared in my own life. The irony was clear. By wishing me gone, my mother had given me exactly what I truly needed: the freedom to exist without her permission. I closed my eyes, listening to the rain and the city's hum below. No laughter, no noise, just peace, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing my silence had caused their undoing. Years passed, soft and steady, like the consistent rhythm of rain on my Portland window. Sometimes I wondered if they still sat around that table, the one where I vanished. I imagined Mom slicing another perfect cake, but nobody laughed exactly the same way. Silence possesses a way of haunting a room once it knows your name. They reached out less over time. First came the letters. Mom's handwriting trembled across the page. "We did not mean it that way." Then the Christmas photos stopped arriving. By the third year, the calls slowed to nothing but static. Yet I was no longer angry. I stopped keeping score the day I learned that peace requires no audience. My life had quietly become full. The students I taught made me laugh. My coworkers became friends. They saw me, not what I could fix for them. Then there was Marcus, a man I met in a bookstore on a rainy Tuesday. He did not ask about my family. He asked about my favorite author. We talked for hours. Between coffee refills and paperbacks, I realized I was happy. When we married, it was a small ceremony at a park, overlooking the water. No family drama, no pretense. Just music, laughter, and a soft wind carrying away everything I used to chase. A few years later, when our daughter was born, I named her Clara. She will never have to earn her place at any table. She will know she belongs, because I will tell her constantly until she never doubts it. Sometimes, when the house is quiet and she is asleep, I think about that night. Mom's voice, the laughter, the silence that came after. That silence used to feel like punishment. Now it feels like peace. The night my mother wished I had never been born was the night I finally began living. If you have ever had to walk away to find peace, you already know. Silence is not the absence of love. It is what happens when you finally love yourself enough to stop begging for noise. When people ask if I ever made peace with my family, I tell them this. Peace is not something you wait for. It is something you build. I never return to that dining room, but sometimes I still dream of it. The silverware clink, the smell of garlic bread, the sound of my own heartbeat trying hard to stay quiet. In those dreams, I do not see their faces anymore, just the empty chairs, and the silence that fills the room long after I walked away. Portland became home. My classroom, my safe place. My daughter, my proof that love can grow from the wreckage of what came before. Every time she runs into my arms, laughing, I think about that night. The one meant to erase me, and I realize it failed. It rewrote me. Because sometimes the cruelest wish becomes the greatest gift. Mom wished I was never born. In a way, she got her wish. The version of me they once knew, the one who begged to be seen, does not exist anymore. But the woman who replaced her, she was born that night, right over dessert. So if you have ever been told you do not belong, that you are too much or not enough, listen to me now. You can leave the table. You can build your own. When you do, you will find silence is not loss. It means you finally have the space to hear your own voice. If this story reached you tonight, drop your city in the comments. Tell me, have you ever had to walk away from someone you love just to love yourself? Your story might be the one someone else needs to hear.